Hello. Okay. So, good evening. My name is Manak, and I don't have any insightful truths to share. I just want to take a deeply personal look at public spaces and tell you a story about reclaiming that I've actually never shared anywhere before. 2004, I went on my first date, and I don't remember the exact day. I don't even remember the face of my date anymore, but I do remember what happened on that day. It was a walk in the park, quite literally. We went to Lodi Garden, and we walked around for about 40 minutes. We had no place to go. We had nothing particular to do. We were broke and young. We couldn't pay for coffee because we were broke, and the only money we spent was 10 rupees on a bottle of water and 10 rupees on buying a rose, which I bought as a gift for my date. In those 40 minutes of walking around, I actually saw how a very familiar space can completely transform. Lodi Garden, where I'd come for morning and evening walks probably all of my life till that date, turned on me. It was one of my favorite spaces in the city, and it turned completely hostile. We were jeered at, people made comments, a group of men followed us, and some songs were sung. The guards told us not to sit and wait around. They told us, park walk karne ke liye hai, baithne ke liye nahi. So we had to walk along. We weren't even kuchi-kuing, none of that, actually. We weren't interested. We just wanted to have a conversation, but even that was not possible. I think it was something to do with the rose and the curious sight of two boys walking around with one. And more than that, I think it was the floral print of his shirt and the way his body moved when he walked. He got extremely conscious of his own body. I got extremely conscious of him walking next to me. And in that second, when I felt my confidence completely melting away, I had to take a call on whether I am going to be able to reclaim my voice or my space. I honestly wished I could have run away. And what made me stay on was not any kind of activist impulse. It was the inability to come up with a good enough excuse. And I found him a bit cute. So we stayed, we argued with the guards a bit, but we stayed and mostly continued to walk so as to not get into any more fights. It was embarrassing, but leaving would be admitting that we are gay, and it would be even more embarrassing. We didn't meet again after that. But 5 years later, 2009, I came out to my parents. My brother, who helped me through all of that and was deeply supportive, told them, at least he doesn't behave like he's gay, at least he doesn't behave like that. And that was consolation. And I realized that I'd spent many years in school hoping I don't behave like that. Because that was the going thing. Sorry, I'm losing my cars over here. So I think I also thought about my date on that day, actually, and whether that little bit of reclaiming even the personal space was available to him, and what it meant for him to actually try and not behave the way he wanted to. So today, as we talk about young people who are coming out in large numbers to reclaim, and that gives me a lot of hope and a lot of happiness, I want us to think about the very individual reclaiming that a lot of us have to do because we have no other choice. And I want us to be very, very conscious of who can reclaim a public space and in what context. In 2012, my story is not over, I went back to Lodi Garden because I was volunteering to organize the Delhi Queer Pride, which was about last year, a few months ago. And we were back in Lodi Garden doing a picnic to make placards that we would carry in the park. And the space transformed again. It became welcoming, it became curious, it became queer. And I see a lot of things that have gone into that transformation. 5 years of pride marches in the city, a lot of talking in the media, in homes, a lot of picnics, films, discussions. I see laws changing, I see attitudes changing, I see roses of red, trees of green, I see them bloom for you and me. I think to myself, what a wonderful, wonderful world, to quote Louis Armstrong. And I realize that the colors of the rainbow, which are extremely pretty in the sky, are indeed on the faces of a lot of us who are walking by. And I found that even within the gay community, within the queer community, there was a lot of unease. There was a lot of unease with effeminate men and women who were not effeminate, and a lot of identities and behaviors that existed somewhere in the middle. Many people didn't come to a march because they thought, log mujhe bhi hijra samjhenge. I am like that. And they didn't want to do that. There was a separate pride in being straight acting, even though you might not really be acting. And interestingly, it seemed easier for people who were visibly different to come and reclaim a march because they had gone through the process of reclaiming every day of their lives in different spaces. I think it's easier to reclaim now than I found it back when I went on my first date. I think this surge of social action by young people isn't really so spontaneous. There is a lot of reasons why posters that are fabulous and made by Godstead are coming from the Facebook page into the protesters' rage. I think there is long years of the women's movement that has gone behind it. I think there is a lot of work in small spaces like the Pride March, like the Safe Cities campaign by Jagori, and a lot of other people and organizations that are now being used to learn by organizations like mine, which are running the Must Bowls and the Godstairs and many others. And I think we need to think about that. I think every space is private and public altogether and in different ways. And even at the same time, I think the wave of change, so to say, has given us that opportunity to stop and do some deep reflection, and that reflection to inform how we behave and how we act. As we reclaim our voices, I think this is the opportunity to figure out how this reclaiming can actually permeate and transform public, private, in fact, all spaces that we inhabit. And I think all the reclaimed voices must ask that question. So I don't have a deep truth. I have that question, and I'm hoping what we hear today will inform some of that. Thank you.